Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Briefing Room. I'm your host, Bill Freilich from WTCM News Radio, and it's our weekly conversation about some of the stories making headlines across northern Michigan. And this week I'm joined by Sarah Simonich from 9 and 10 News. Welcome back, Sarah.
Thank you, Bill.
Nice to see you. What big story this week is one out of Lake County, a little bit out of our traditional five-county area, especially as far as you and I are concerned, but still a big story. Got some national attention as well, the disappearance of Grand Valley State University football player.
Yeah.
Take us through what your involvement in that story, just you and 9 and 10 News.
Well, 9 and 10 has covered it extensively from the day he went missing. Cullen Finnerty went out, police say, fishing on a small inflatable pontoon type boat. It called his wife, police had said, and said that he had told her, "I'm scared, I had an equipment malfunction, I'm scared." And apparently after that they had found his boat, but it was empty. And
they found his boat on land.
They did. Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a matter of they weren't doing a search in the river for him, right?
Yeah. And so then, was it yesterday that 2 days ago,
Tuesday
2 nights
night.
ago, that they found his body. They had, up until that point, they had search crews, they had the whole Grand Valley State football team looking, a lot of the members, they had a community. The Lake County Sheriff actually said, "No more volunteers, we have so many people helping."
Which was the first thing that struck me as unusual.
Yeah, a lot of people helping, and it's now being said from police that he may have had a quote, mental episode. I don't know, we don't know a lot about that. We don't know if he suffered from any sort of mental illness. We aren't sure yet. But we do know that a preliminary autopsy shows that they haven't found a cause of death, but they have ruled out anything coronary related. So it wasn't a heart attack.
Right.
Now it's even more of a question mark. What happened? Is this it could be anything. I mean, you could speculate for hours and not know. So
yeah, and this is tough. The sheriff told us on the radio that his understanding was he has a history of concussions. Obviously, as a football player at Grand Valley, did a couple of stints with pro teams, Baltimore and Denver. So a history of concussions, but even that they weren't prepared to speculate as to whether there was some issue even related to that.
Sure. Yeah. It's they don't know. I mean, and now it's just an autopsy to reveal. The police have said that they don't suspect foul play. They're treating it as a crime scene, of course, but they said that his body doesn't reveal any signs of foul play. So at this point, any struggle or anything like that. So certainly just an odd story that we've they never know.
Tell me a little bit about the news gathering effort, and maybe more so tell the audience about the news gathering effort, because I know it's different for you than it is for me. It's different for TV 7 and 4. It's different for everybody from every different way. I mean, for us, we don't have the resources to send a crew down to Lake County, so we're working the phones. But you guys obviously have a little bit of an advantage for some of those farther away places. So talk to me, share with all of us just how that kind of conversation happens in the morning meetings, for example.
Sure. Well, in the morning meeting, obviously, we all pitch our ideas, and there's some slow news days, and there's other things where there's things like this going on, and you almost can assume that's what I'm going to be covering. And so that morning, they send a reporter out, and it's been kind of a toss-up of reporters, but Breland Martin has been following it primarily, and send her out, and they'll give her a focus, whether it be focus on the search efforts, focus on, what happened, try and talk to, the sheriff about what they're looking at, or focus on the volunteers that came out searching, why they're searching, what kind of person he was, things like that. But I think a lot of it, too, is just getting the facts out to the people as soon as possible, to the viewer. And it's certainly a stressful time when you're working with a deadline, and it's one of those things, whether you're covering a court case, the big development could happen right before the 6 o'clock news, and you don't have, that's one thing. You can control a lot of things, that's one thing you don't have a lot of control over. But it is certainly good to have one reporter on it so that they can kind of follow it throughout. We did have Meredith live on the phone the night that they found his body. So we couldn't get a live truck out there at 10, 11 o'clock at night for our 11 o'clock newscast, but we did have her live on the phone explaining what she saw, explaining the scene and what we know so far.
I was gonna say too, and I don't know if that was her planned story for that evening or not, but I know that obviously the search had already started Tuesday morning. They had already been out since Sunday, frankly, by then, but this was one of those things where you didn't know when or if they would find something. So you've just got to have a reporter kind of standing by, and that seems to be what happened in that case, where your evening reporter just said, "Okay, I'm going."
Yeah,
and
that's
that
it. She
kind of dropped everything.
She was working on another story, and she got that story finished, and then they sent her right out to the breaking news. So it's an exciting time. Any story like that, though, you can't personalize it. It's hard to talk to a family or see a family that's grieving, especially when a community is out looking like that. And everybody had said, we had hoped to find him. We hoped this story was going to have a happy ending. We hoped we were going to find him alive and well, and thought this story was going to end a little differently. So
the other thing that struck me about this, and I guess frankly at first I was surprised. The more I thought about it, the less surprised I guess I really am about it. But it was just a matter of hours before this became a national story. Mm-hmm. It was on, I was doing it on our newscast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but we follow a national news segment with our local news. So right before I'm about to do it in our local news, there it is on the Fox News National Radio News Report, Michigan football player, and then it was online on CBS and on Fox and on MSN, and all the websites were covering it. So it became a national story.
It did. It doesn't make any rhyme or reason what becomes national and what doesn't. Obviously, a big story like this will. He's sort of high profile in the sense he played college football and he was, well known, and it's solely for the fact that it's a mystery. We don't know what happened. We're still investigating. It's a big thing to follow. So I think that's a lot of the pull behind that too, national-wise.
Another story that we've both been following, I think you got the first scoop on it this week, was what happened in Antrim County with the case of horse neglect. We had 18 horses earlier in May taken from a farm in Ellsworth. Timothy Allen, Tracy Bazell, charged with animal abuse and neglect. So the potential was several years in prison, but all of a sudden we kind of got a big surprise this week.
Yeah, we went to the preliminary exam out in Antrim County, just another step sort of in the court process. And when we got there, a lot of times what will happen with the preliminary exam, for those that don't know, is they will waive it. Because you could either, have people testify, or it can be another step in the process, or
it's usually a minor, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal.
So we got out there and waited a while. They started real late, and when Charlie Koop came out, the prosecutor, he basically, in so many words, he said we're going to dismiss without prejudice, but that means charges are dropped. They dropped the charges against these two people that were accused of animal neglect. There were 18 horses, malnourished, seized from their property back at the beginning of the month.
Right.
And our website got a lot of comments. We've talked to Horse North Rescue. They went to Serenity Ranch in Frederick to recover. A lot of people have been interested in adopting them. People from all over northern Michigan, including stores donating supplies to these rescues to take care of them. And so definitely didn't see that coming, in my personal opinion. But
what was your first reaction when he said that?
I looked at my cameraman, my photojournalist, and we just couldn't believe it. I think, and it was just very nonchalant, case dismissed without prejudice. And Jeremy looked at me, kind of thought, and then everybody in the courtroom really didn't say much. Just kind of sat there till the hearing was over. But what it was contingent upon was this agreement. It's this 4 to 5 page agreement between the defense and the prosecution that basically lists a laundry list of things that they have
to. It's an extensive list.
Yes, that they have to abide by. I could go on and on, but those things include, clean their stalls daily. It includes, regular dental care, immunizations up to date, a heated water bucket in the winter. Talks about bringing them in and installing them in harsh weather conditions, whether it be high winds or a storm.
Regular visits by animal control.
Animal control for the first 3 months. Animal control will visit Avallondale's farm twice a week. They're only allowed to have 5 horses. What happened is 6 of the horses that were seized already belonged to other people, so those are being returned.
They're basically a boarding stable, taken care of.
Yes, and then another 5 were taken to or gifted or adopted or something like that. They have new homes, and then that leaves 7. Well, they can get those 7 back. They may have already, actually. And within 5 months, the agreement states they have to get rid of 2 of those. So over the course of the next 2 years, they're only allowed to have 5 horses. So
it takes the breath out of me just
Yeah,
listening to it and trying to go through all that, because as you said, it was just a real big surprise. And I talked to Charlie Coop about it as well that afternoon, and he said, part of the reason was that we dropped the number of horses. We made this deal that if they don't try to keep 18 horses, they can do it. Mm-hmm. Another part of the reason was we placed all these restrictions on them. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that surprised me the most, he said, another reason is that the owners of some of these horses that are not the two people who were charged didn't seem to think that their animals were mistreated or neglected, which said to me, the prosecutor thought he was going to have a tough time going all the way through a trial with this.
And that's what he told me as well.
If the horses' owners didn't see much of a problem.
Well, and he said, he goes, we could go through all this case, and oftentimes, he said they could end up getting them back anyway, or a certain number of them. Yeah. He said a lot of it, too, was the willingness of the defendants to participate in a program like this that would, help them take care of horses. And he said they weren't as bad, they weren't as malnourished as other horses we have seen. Mm-hmm. Those were his words. And he said, they did fall on hard times. There was a hay shortage, a drought. Every farmer, every horse owner had that problem. He said, however, that's not an excuse. They could have gotten help, but that was taken into consideration. And so I think, yeah, there's a lot of restrictions put on them. But if that's how, if animal control has to visit twice a week and inspect the farm, it's going to be kind of hard for them to not feed them or not follow by the agreement. So
the other questions that it raises for me are, what kind of a burden does that put now? And maybe that's a follow-up story. Is what kind of a burden does that place now on animal control to go above and beyond what you would consider normal animal control duties to now have to make regular stops, frequent regular stops at a horse farm? That's just an added burden for, I would think, a department that probably has a lot of other added burdens right now anyway.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be tough. But from my understanding, they also had chickens taken away, I think cats. They had other animals taken away because they weren't allowed to have any animals at all. I don't know. It's unclear, I guess, if they're being returned. I'm sure they will be if they're getting some of their horses back. But they had a big support group, too. Every time we went to court, there was, neighbors there supporting them. So it's an interesting story.
Well, another big one that came out this week, news out of Lansing, the education budget for the next school year, and it probably couldn't come any later than this without schools having to kind of take their own budget action, because we're all in that time now. We're still talking about a deficit, but there is some extra money.
Sure, there is a little bit extra money. We talked to TCAPS yesterday, and we also talked to Kingsley area schools, and for a smaller district like Kingsley, they're looking at, Keith Smith said, about $100,000 extra. TCAP's looking at about $750,000. If everything goes through as planned, it's still waiting for the governor's signature, but so about a 2 to 3% funding boost, for Michigan public schools. And what TCAPS was saying was that, we've lost millions over the last years, and while this is a help, anything helps. We're still looking at a deficit, but this will help offset that. He said, we were looking at $5 to $6 million deficit the past few years. Now we're looking at maybe, 700,000 to 900,000, as far as deficit. But they said it helps. It's a good thing to have this. So we'll see what happens. The governor has to sign it, but they're certainly thankful that they're getting more, a little bit more help. So.
Well, let's take a break here on the briefing room. We'll talk more about some of the stories we're covering in the days and weeks ahead when we come back. We'll be back in just a minute.
What is Up North TV?
It's TV that you do.
You pick the topic.
You write the script. You run the camera.
You edit the video.
It's your vision.
Your perspective.
Your story.
Commercial free.
Free speech. What is Up North TV?
It's me.
It's you.
It's all of us.
View us on Analog 97.
Cable digital too.
Digital 992.
UpNorthMedia.org.
Welcome back to the briefing room. I'm Bill Freilich, joined this week by Sarah Simnich from 9 and 10 News, and also joining us in this half of the program, Jeremy McBain from the Petoskey News Review. Good to see you as well.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for coming in. We want to turn our attention to news from up north. for this week, and a couple of the big stories. Well, I guess let's start with current events. You've got the Mackinac Island Detroit Regional Chamber Policy Conference going on. For those folks who aren't as familiar with it, as I'm sure we are, maybe we wish we weren't, just tell us what's going on, because you've got a lot of big names, the movers and shakers from Lansing, but it's the Detroit Policy Conference.
Well, I mean, you pretty much covered it right there. You've got pretty much everyone that's the who's who in state politics coming into the conference in Mackinac Island. They're even bringing in a lot of national names. Yesterday was the opening. Jeb Bush came in and he gave the opening presentation on it, and Schneider spoke yesterday. I believe he'll be speaking today as well.
Do you think of that as an apolitical event, or not? I mean, how do you perceive it compared to, for example, the Republican conference on Mackinac Island, which is in the fall?
It's hard for me to say something is apolitical, because whenever it comes to politics, it's nothing's apolitical.
Right.
Well, in the state of Michigan, the party that's in power right now, by a wide majority, is the Republican Party. So, I mean, they are in control of this conference, and it's really a Republican. Yeah, it is what it is.
But it is run by the Detroit Regional Chamber, right?
Yeah.
It's not a GOP event necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
Theoretically.
Theoretically. But, I mean, when most of your speakers are of the big names in the Republican Party.
Well, and I was going to say that, and maybe that shifts with the political wins of the year, because I can remember, obviously when the Governor Granholm was in office, she's one of the headlining speakers of that event, Senator Stabenow, Senator Levin. But now we're talking Governor Schneider, Jeb Bush. It seems to have taken a different flavor.
Yeah, I mean, it blows with the political wins, of course, and it also depends on what are the big issues of the day. I mean, right now we're talking about budget issues, education issues. It's going to be different every year.
Yeah. Tell us what you have, and tell the folks watching what you have up there in terms of news coverage. You've got a specific reporter kind of dedicated to that for the next couple of days.
Yes, I've got a reporter, political reporter, Brandon Hubbard, who is on the island today, and he's having a sit-down meeting with Governor Schneider, and then he'll be localizing a few stories from up there, but basically just covered with one reporter at the time.
Another story that I think we've all been watching, and you probably more closely than either of us, but the Petoskey Point project, the proverbial hole in the ground that we all lovingly refer to in downtown Petoskey, but some big changes for that in the past couple of weeks. Yes,
the Northwestern Bank, which purchased the property, is coming in and they're filling it, for the most part, filling it up. I mean, there's a disagreement of just exactly how much is going to be full in that, but they've come to a nice deal with the city council that I think everyone's going to be happy in the short term until something can be built there. We have to remember that it is private property, and the bank owns it, and the bank does. They don't want to lose money off of this deal. So
give me the 30-second summary, if you would. I mean, obviously this hasn't always been a hole in the ground. At some point, developers dug a hole in the ground to build something that never happened.
Yeah, what happened was there were several buildings in the downtown area of Petoskey, actually right in the entrance to the downtown. The old theater was there and a few others, and they're pretty decrepit. And a developer came in and said, I want to tear these down and I want to build a high-class mix of retail and condos and some parking spaces and that, which parking is needed in Petoskey big time. And city council, long story short, said yes to it, because there was some haggling with the communities. There was some ballot issues that went on, but in the end, the developer could build the project. He went forward with the project, tore down the buildings, dug the hole, put in kind of a rudimentary foundation, I guess you could say, around the edges of it, and then went bankrupt. So there the whole sat,
Right.
and it went into foreclosure, and the property went up for sale in foreclosure, and it was purchased by Northwestern Bank. I can't remember for how much it was purchased.
I keep
for.
waiting for the hole to get filled in, and then another 10 years from now, we're going to have the discussion about how we want to dig up the hole and put in underground parking. And
Oh, please, God. No.
Underground parking.
Well, I mean, that's the big.
at least we
city
can
wants
pave
parking.
it now and put in just a parking lot, right?
Yeah, in theory. I mean, in theory, you can do a lot of things with it.
Anything's better than the wire fence.
Yeah,
around
anything's
town.
better than the wire fence. I mean, it's been suggested. Let's make it into a park. Let's just put in parking in it. Let's make it into an outdoor amphitheater. But that's all well and good, but still, it's a private property, and
And we'll see.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. They're going to have a plan for it, and they got to come up with a plan for it. They'll probably sell it to another developer who will come up with another plan for it.
It'll go on and on.
In the meantime, the hole will be filled in. That's
That's the story.
that's the key.
Well, as we know, plans can change on that and any number of things. Another issue where plans change, the Charlevoix fireplace.
Yes.
The city council voted to put in this originally, a 20-foot tall fireplace, chopped it down to 2 feet, which I guess I still don't have a visualization of a 2-foot tall fireplace. But
I thought it was 4
Two-
feet.
was it
or
4
something.
feet?
I
All
can't
right.
remember. Yeah.
But now we've got a recall election, a new city council, and we've scrapped everything, right?
Yeah. Well,
Starting over.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Now there's a hole in the ground in Charlevoix.
no, I actually drove by it,
Okay.
and there's no hole, and it's just gone now. It's just a blank spot. We had the recall election. The recall was all about the fireplace, and the voters completely swept out everybody that was up for recall election, replaced them, and at the very first meeting, right after the recall election, they voted to scrap the fireplace plan, get rid of the whole thing, which isn't surprising. I mean,
Right.
we expected them to do this when we saw the results of the recall election come in. We knew it was going to happen.
My two questions for you now are, what of the person who was donating all the money to the town to do that, how do they feel about it? And two, how much money did the city spend on starting, changing, finishing, tearing down a fireplace that doesn't exist? I mean, how much money are we talking about? Do we know those answers yet?
I don't know the answer to how does the donor feel about it because he's anonymous. And he's been speaking through a proxy, I guess you could call him, John Wynn, which is a local citizen in Charlevoix. So I don't know how he feels about it. He's probably pretty upset about it. But from what I remember back early on in the story, what we found out was that this donor, he wanted to honor his wife in some way. And he went to Mr. Wynn and said, I want to donate his money to something in the park. And Mr. Wynn suggested the fireplace.
Okay.
And this guy, he wanted to donate money. I think he really wanted it for the water. There's a little water park in the East Park too, like little sprinkler fountains and that. And Mr. Wynn suggested the fireplace. So I don't really know how
So it's
how
all
dedicated
started out
he was
as a
to
good
it.
memorial intention, and then it's snowballed into
Yeah,
this
it just went to
blocking the
hell.
water.
There could, in theory, be another. I mean, if that's the donor's intention, there could be something other than a fireplace in the park.
Yeah, there
Very-
could be. I wish him the best, and he had good intentions. There were good intentions all around, I think. But you get a park in Charlevoix, which is like they love, and it's going to cause some
That's a
emotional feelings.
sensitive area
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the community. Sarah, let me turn back to you because I know we've got a story coming up next week that my guess is you will probably be involved in, and I know Up North TV will be as well. The funeral for Helen Milliken, the former First Lady of Michigan. Just tell me, I mean, I know it's a little early, but in theory, we're talking, you guys
Likely some live coverage.
doing some coverage, some live coverage of that as well.
Sure, yeah, and we covered it, too, when she passed, and talked to Denos Museum and, all of those things, because she was so active in the Traverse City community, and she still has so many people who love her and, care about her. She also was real active with several nonprofits, and it's certainly going to be a big day, especially for the community, to sort of say goodbye and remember her, because she really left a lasting impression here in Traverse City.
Yeah, we haven't. It'll be interesting to see, I guess, how that goes, because we really haven't seen anything on this scope in Traverse City, short of presidential visit or something like that. But we're having governor and senators and a memorial service. I mean, we're talking procession and traffic issues and a lot of stuff logistically. What goes through your mind, maybe just in preparation for that, in advance of how you see that day playing out? I mean, I know a million things will change between now and then, but just to give folks a sense as to what logistically maybe goes through your mind.
We'll likely get an early start, just so we can get all of our things together and everything like that. And we'll probably do 2 to 3 different stories on it. Maybe one in the 5, one in the 6. We may have something in the noon. We may have another reporter live with me. I may not be live at all. They could bring someone up from Cadillac. But really just getting our plan set in the morning, for the day.
There are a lot of logistical hurdles to accomplish for something like that.
Yeah, talking to, whether it's talking to officials or lining up, the proper interviews ahead of time so we know that we're going to have them by our deadline, all of those things. But we really can't do anything with it till the day of. So you kind of just have to wait and see what plays out.
Jeremy, let's close out with maybe telling me what's on the front page today, or what folks should pay attention to in the Petoskey News Review as we head into the weekend. Any big stories on the horizon?
Well, you got the Maginot Conference. So there's going to be a lot of politics, and they're going to be the big stories. You get the budget that's being passed in the state house right now. That's going to be big. You're going to be seeing a lot of that in the news in the coming weeks. What's the impact going to be on your local school districts, as well as local cities and fire, police, and that. I think that's going to be big news, as well as the economy. We're getting into the summer season. This is the make or break time for a lot of businesses in northern Michigan. So the economy is going to be on the front burner.
I didn't really leave enough time to get into it, but short answer, how did Memorial Day seem to go up in the Petoskey area business-wise?
Good.
Busy?
Good. It was busy, yeah.
Good. And I almost forgot, we gotta mention Sarah's big change for 9 and 10 News. Sarah, you are leaving but not leaving, so it's good that we get to keep you around town, but tell us all what you'll be doing.
I will be the new Fox 32 news anchor for 7 and 10 o'clock, starting sometime in mid-June. It's kind of unclear yet. But
congratulations.
Thank you.
There's a few staff shuffles going on. You're not the only one that making a little bit of a change, right?
Sure. Michelle's back to evenings, Michelle Dunaway, Jessica's back to mornings, so we're kind of all just finding a place right now. So I'm real excited about it.
Well, good.
So.
Well, congratulations
Thank you.
to you for that. We'll look for you on Fox 32. That means a move down to Cadillac for you, but we'll still wake you up early and bring you back to the briefing room. Well, good. Thanks, Sarah, for joining us, and Jeremy, appreciate you guys coming in. And thanks to everyone for tuning into the briefing room this week. I'm Bill Freilich, and we'll see you again next time.